All right, good morning, and Merry Christmas. In the book of Genesis chapter 47, Jacob is standing before Pharaoh. Joseph, his son, has brought Jacob, his father, since Joseph is a high-ranking officer in Egypt. Joseph has brought his father Jacob to stand before Pharaoh, and he's going to receive a blessing from Pharaoh, and Pharaoh will receive a blessing from Jacob. It's an appropriate season to talk about our blessings. So here we go in Genesis chapter 47. We'll jump right into this. Genesis 47 verse 7 says this, "Then Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh." You remember why they're there is because there's such a severe famine. There's no food. They're running out of resources. Egypt has it. And so Joseph brings Jacob and his brothers into Egypt. And what Pharaoh does for Jacob here is he says, you can have the best of the land. And also, if you have competent herdsmen, bring them in and I'll hire them. And in exchange, what Jacob does is he says, he blesses Pharaoh. Now, who do you think received something that's more easy to point to about what a blessing is? Jacob, who received land, employment, security inside of the Egyptian kingdom, a place to build a house? Or Pharaoh, who received Jacob's words, be blessed? What's interesting about a blessing is you'll see how both of these, how the word is used for both of these. We can define blessing in different ways. First, God's favor and protection. This is Oxford's dictionary, their very first one. It's related to divinity. God's favor and protection is to be blessed, or to pray a blessing over somebody is to pray for God's favor and protection over them. So Jacob is given the king of Egypt the highest blessing from the highest king, God's favor and protection over you for giving me this land. We also have the approval or encouragement for the word blessing to receive somebody's blessing. It's like to ask for somebody's hand in marriage or to use their car or something. I'm giving you my blessing to stay in my house. And then the third one, which we easily relate to, a thing of conductive to happiness or welfare. I would much say that I have been blessed by all of you. You have been a blessing to me. You've given me encouragement, given me joy, you've given me love, you've given me joy. I am very much blessed by you. And we'll see how all three of these definitions right here are associated and come from God. And more importantly, I want you to see how you've been blessed. I want you to see how to bless others, and I want you to see how you bless each other in here. So back to our story. Pharaoh gives Jacob the land and says, I have given you the best land. I've given your herdsmen employment. You have protection in this kingdom. You have my permission to be here. We are basically common citizens at this point. And Jacob blesses Pharaoh, says, God's favor and protection be over you, Pharaoh. However this looked, if he laid his hands on them, I doubt Pharaoh would let somebody touch him or lifted his hands up like this. Jacob gives Pharaoh the blessing, and then he asks him a weird question. Pharaoh says to Jacob, how old are you? And this is Jacob's response. Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days and the years of my sojourning are 130 years. 130 years. And then he follows 130 years up with few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not reached the years and the lives of my ancestors in their sojourning. Even at 130 years old, Jacob recognizes those that came in the generations before me lived even longer. I mean, Noah lived to be like 900 plus years. And we have more accounts of people that lived way past 130 years. And so Jacob considers his 130 years to be few. Few and evil have been the days of my sojourning here. What's the most interesting about this is Jacob still recognizes, I'm just a pilgrim. I have no home. Thank you for this place inside of this kingdom, Pharaoh. Thank you for the land. We can build a house. We can settle here for a while, but overall, we're still just pilgrims. We haven't come to our home yet. And you would figure somebody at this old age would want to consider that where he is settling is finally a home. But he's, no. I'm just a pilgrim here. The land that they had, Pharaoh possessed, could have a dollar value to it. Somebody could have bought that. Jacob could have bought that. But when Jacob sees the land, he sees it as something temporary. And the blessing that he gives Pharaoh could not be bought like the land he was dwelling in. You see, blessings from God just cannot be bought. And in this point in time, it was exactly what Jacob and Joseph and the rest of the family needed right now. During the famine, they had a place where they could have provision, a place to lay down, a place to rest, and some sort of security. And without that working, they would have almost had nothing. They would have been the victim of the famine. And so you can see how God worked through Joseph in all of this to make the provision to lead Jacob and the family to the very spot where they needed to be. And you can very well see just very much how Jacob then had God's favor and protection. He laid the plan out without him even knowing about it. Who was really blessed here? Jacob was blessed by God. He recognized, God has done this for me. He used Pharaoh, but God has blessed me. And I want you to think about how God has blessed you. You can think back in your life of all the ways that God was working in a plan that you probably weren't even aware of until it came to the solution of something that you just needed in all of that time. And then it all comes to the clear picture when that thing comes about. God had been working in ways that I didn't even know about beforehand, situations and things to bring me to this moment. When you recount that, you see how much you are blessed, how much I have been blessed. This idea of obtaining a land, a blessing of a land, that blessing of permission to be somewhere and belong and to have something is an idea that carried through it, because even at the ascension of Christ, the disciples are asking Jesus, are you going to give us back Jerusalem? Will you restore the kingdom to this people? Remember, they had been given land just like Pharaoh gave them. They had accumulated land, and it was taken away from them over and over and over, and this time it was by Rome. And so they were just pilgrims in their own land since Rome had taken over it. And the idea of the mind of the Jewish people was someday a military leader is going to come, and they're going to give us Israel back. The kingdom will be ours again. And so as Jesus was ascending, that was their question. Well, are you going to restore the physical kingdom to us? Do we get the land back? And in all of that time, the plan that Jesus had come to bless them with, his favor, his protection, his salvation, that was the blessing that they had been receiving this whole time. That was the plan that was in work. And they're wondering, do we get the land? Do we get this one thing back? But the blessing had already been given to them. They just had not recognized it yet. Again, you see how God works and gives us the best things that we need. And sometimes it takes us a little bit to recognize it until we all get to put it back together. They didn't realize yet that they weren't home, that they were still just pilgrims, until we come into the eternal kingdom, the heavenly kingdom. And they still had yet to recognize for just a few more chapters how temporary everything really is. And when it finally catches up how temporary everything is, our best example, our beloved Apostle Paul, he knows this just as much. He says he recognizes his temporary need in Acts chapter 20, 33 to 35. This is how he sees the world finally. I've desired no one's silver or gold or clothing. He's like, these things weren't my pursuit. You yourselves know that these hands serve to meet my needs and the needs of those with me. All we have are needs, and I have mine, and they have theirs. And my pursuit is to care for all of us, especially the needs of others. I have shown you with respect to all things, working hard in this way, it is necessary to help those who are in need. It's necessary to help those who are in need. Do you see how you can be a blessing to others? And then he uses the words of the Lord, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I know that you're familiar with the feelings of when you give something, that charitable feeling that you have, it kind of boosts your own self-encouragement. You feel better when you give something to somebody else. And that's not what he's saying here. He's not saying that's why you give. He's not saying that's what's important here. In fact, it's not even a commandment here to give. It's an opportunity to recognize that you are a blessing to other people. You can bless other people. Every time about this year, you've probably already seen the commercials start to roll in. It's like Labor Day and Christmas that you start seeing these commercials come around. You deserve a car. Pay us. You deserve every toy you want, another car. You deserve a car. You deserve this car. This is what I deserve. This is what Paul says instead. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I received a stoning. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Day and night I spent in the deep water. I've been on a journey many times in dangers from the rivers, robbers, dangers of my own people, dangers of the Gentiles, dangers in the city, dangers in the wilderness, dangers and dangers, because of false brothers and toils and hardships, often sleepless nights, hunger and thirst, often going hungry and cold and poorly clothed. If anybody realized who deserved a car, it was Paul. And then he follows up with this right here. Apart from these external things, the pressure from me and the anxiety is, when am I going to get my Escalade? I deserve the car. His mind was not at all on himself. All of this, and my concern, is still the anxiety about the church. Somebody that had given up everything about his life for the sake of everyone else. He gave up his status as a Pharisee, everything that came with that, wealth, security, a nation to belong to, just to be in chains like this at the very end. But all his life to bless others with the gospel and wanting to meet the needs of everyone else. If anybody understood what it was to sacrifice themselves to bless others, it was the Apostle Paul. In fact, this concern about the church carries on after this in 2 Corinthians 12:20. It says this, for I'm afraid lest somehow when I arrive, when he comes back to the church that he's so concerned about, I will find you not as I want. Now I'm afraid I'm going to find you somehow with strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, slander, gossip, pride, disorder. That's what I'm worried about coming to you for. I'm afraid you're at odds with each other. I'm afraid of everything that could afflict the church. And then he moves through the rest of the scripture. For indeed, he was crucified because of weakness. He lives because of the power of God. For we are also weak in him, but we will live together with him because of the power of God towards you. He wants to know you're unified. Because of Christ, you're together. What's with the possible disorder, the slander, the gossip, the selfish ambition? We're united in Christ. It's we. It's together. It's because of God. And then finally, at the end of the book, he contrasts it with this. Test yourselves to see if you're in the faith. Examine yourselves. You're in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, rejoice, the opposite of his worries. Outbursts of anger, how about rejoice? Be restored, be encouraged. Not slander, gossip, not pride. Greet each other with a holy kiss. All the saints want to be together with you. Unity, not disorder. Not against each other. In other words, bless each other. Be a blessing to each other. Of the three, when you see how God has blessed you, how you can bless each other, and how we're blessed with each other and by each other in this place. That's the easiest one for us to see, for us to relate to, I think so. I feel like all of us probably have a testimony, a story about how somebody here has done something for you and how you wanted to do something for somebody else. The blessing each other in this place at Pratt Parkway is not difficult for us. And if you could start there, work it backwards. Who else can you bless? What can you do? See how God has brought you this far and given you exactly what you need. Do you see how God has blessed you? I have an older cousin. His name is Jack Gaskins. And when I was younger, I actually called him Uncle Jack because he was older, so I figured he was an uncle, but he was actually just a cousin. My oldest sister, Brooke, would graciously correct me often. But one time, Cousin Jack, we were all living in Albuquerque at the time, Jack Gaskins and the rest of his family, and they were happy. They had stability, a house. He's an educator, and just something just wasn't right within him. He felt like something was missing, couldn't really put a finger on it, and he ended up going to Texas for an interview for another educational position. And on the flight back, it just started stirring up inside of him again. What is wrong? What am I not happy about? We're content with what we have. We're content where we are. The family's happy. Just something just isn't, it's just not setting right. And a song started playing in his head. And I'll save you the tangent about how music, there's just something about the way God made music for us to remember things. But this is the song that just started playing in his head. When upon life's billows you are tempest tossed, when you are discouraged, thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Are you ever burdened with a load of care? Does the cross seem heavy you are called to bear? Count your many blessings, every doubt will fly, and you will be singing as the days go by. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged. God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend, help and comfort give you to your journey's end. Count your many blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. Count your many blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. Have you counted your blessings lately? The greatest conflict of our sin was already taken care of because we were blessed by God's favor and protection when he came for us. You're familiar with John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. What a better way to describe God's favor than to say that he loved you so much that he gave his only Son. Have you counted your blessings and your billows when you're tossed, and the great and the small conflicts? It's exactly what Cousin Jack actually started doing on his flight back after thinking about this song. He just started thinking back. We've got this. We're okay. Family's all right. We've made it this far. Kids are in school. We have the house. And what we found was a change of attitude in that moment. Everything's all right. He did end up getting that job in Texas, and they did end up moving. But when you see how God has made the plan and brought you this far, when you count your blessings, you will also find your peace. Do you want to partake in God's blessing this morning, if you haven't already? Because he wants to give you his favor and his protection. He wants to invite you into that same kingdom. You are blessed to reside here forever, and after this temporary pilgrimage is over on this earth, you have an eternal place to call home. And he wants to give that to you. Galatians 3:20, you're familiar with it. I'm crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Truly, we are blessed. Do you see how you're blessed? Do you see how you can bless others? And I know you can certainly see how we bless each other here at Pratt. It's not time to let off the gas, though.